Hey guys, it's Ted Bogert. Welcome back to the TED Show. Gosh, you have no idea how honored I am to have this gentleman on the show. We have Orange County Mayor Jerry Demings on the show. He's been on the show before. He's got such a great wealth of information, and we are celebrating Black History Month this month on the TED Show, and he is going to close it out for us. Mayor Demings is the first African American elected to the position, and he's got a beautiful, amazing history here in Central Florida. Welcome back, Mayor Demings. How are you today?
I'm fantastic, and thank you, Ted, for inviting me to participate in the show. I always feel right at home whenever we are on the show with you. You do great work here in the community, and I am very humbled to serve as the fifth elected Orange County Mayor.
It's amazing what you've done. It's amazing the amount of work that goes into what you do. And we'll talk a little bit about that. But before we do, they love history. They love origin story. I already mentioned you're the first elected African American to the position, but you've got a long history here in Orlando and Central Florida. So for anybody who might be living under a rock, tell them a little bit about your history here.
Well, this is where I was born and raised. Orlando is home for me. I'm the youngest of five children, albeit I have a twin brother who's 30 minutes older than I am. And this is my 41st year of public service in Orange County. After graduating from college and moving back home, I went to work as an accountant. I went to work for a management consulting firm for about a year and a half. And then I went to the Orlando Police Department in 1981. At that time, I started out as a street cop, as an Orlando police officer, and I worked my way up through the ranks. And at 17 years on the agency, Mayor Linda E. Hood, the only woman to have served as Orlando's mayor, appointed me as the 34th Orlando police chief in 1998. Amazing. I served for 4 years until I retired in 2002. So 20 years ago, I retired from the Orlando Police Department and went to work here at Orange County government as Deputy County Administrator and Director of Public Safety. And I did that for nearly 6 years. And so in both of those high profile jobs, Chief of Police and Deputy County Administrator and Director of Public Safety, I was the first African American and Black to serve in those roles as well. In 2008, I was elected on the historic ballot that elected the first Black president of the United States of America, Barack Hussein Obama. I was elected as the 28th elected sheriff and the first Black to serve in that role. I was elected 3 terms, and in 2018, on December the 4th, I held both jobs in one day. I was the sheriff for 12 hours that day, and I was the mayor for the remaining 12 hours of the day. And so this is my 4th year as an Orange County mayor, and so that means that I'm up for re-election this year. Thank God at this point, I do not have an opponent. We'll see if that changes. They have until the first week or so in June of this year in which to qualify. But I'm not worried about that. If this merry-go-round stops tomorrow, I feel like that I've had the opportunity to serve and be of service to others.
And I feel like everything that you've done, I mean, your whole career has been this fascinating path. Do you feel extra pressure being the first Black, the first African American in multiple positions? Is there an added, not stress, but is there an added burden or an added responsibility, is a better word, when you are serving?
I've learned to manage that. Not anymore. I don't feel any more pressure in this role because I just happen to be Black. In my first major appointed position as chief of police, there was a little bit of pressure there, I think, to be quite frank about it, because being from this area, the people who've been here for decades, I'm familiar to all of them. But we have such a melting pot, new people who are here, who every day I get to meet someone else that I didn't know the day before. And because of that, I've learned now through experience to not fret so much about the burdens of the job itself. And so I put it in perspective as a former law enforcement officer. I was in some bad situations. Sometimes they were high risk situations, they're shootings and other things. And so the litmus test for me now is, are they shooting at me? And for the most part, that answer is no. And so because of that, I think I'm able to approach the job with a certain calmness that allows me to very calmly preside and do what I do, because I believe that when you have a certain level of comfort in the job that you're doing, then you're able to uh, really think through the decisions that you make in a more, I think, balanced way.
Agreed. So tell me about the next 4 years. Was the first 4 years everything that you thought it would be? Was it as easy? I'm sure it was not easy. I can't even say that without laughing. Um, Tell me about the experience, because it is one thing. You think that you know everything. You go from one position to the next. But being mayor of Orange County is a big, giant deal. Not that every position you've held is not, but this is a leap. Was there anything that surprised you? Was there something that you said, wow, I just did not realize that? Or had your experience kind of prepared you for all of it?
Well, fortunately, I'm well trained, well educated. I've been to all of the schools, gotten advanced degrees, and have a lot of experience at this point that helps me to have matured into to this role. So, in terms of what has it been like to be the mayor, I couldn't have predicted that I'd have to manage during a pandemic, a 100-year phenomenon.
Yes.
But when you think about it, as a crisis manager, I have 40 years or so of crisis management experience. I've been through some tough situations. I've had to respond to all types of weather phenomena, hurricanes, tornadoes. I've had to respond to a terror attack at this point. I've had to respond to mass shootings, suicides. I've had to respond to a number of major crises in this community that really adequately prepared me for the rigors of the job today. And I think the 6 years, or nearly 6 years, that I served here as deputy county administrator, while I was responsible for public safety, I had 3,200 employees at that time that reported to me. But I was also required to learn all of the county's operations as a deputy county administrator. So now, as the Orange County mayor, I am the elected CEO for Orange County government, which means that all of the day-to-day operations, ultimately, I'm responsible for those day-to-day operations. And because of being a constitutional officer, a sheriff, and doing some of the other things, all of those things really prepared me to know what I was doing. When I came to work here on December the 4th of 2018, I knew where the bathrooms were. I knew where the offices were. I knew the staff here. So it was not as if I was going into unfamiliar territory. Because of kind of the breadth of the things that I've had to do over time, it was an easy transition for me into the position. The first year, I wanted to do some things that I have not yet been able to do. I wanted to really, at least during the first term of office, I wanted to really by now have a dedicated funding source for transportation initiatives in place in this community. I had to suspend those efforts in 2020 because of the pandemic,
Sure.
but I'm re-engaging those efforts, and hopefully in November of this year, we'll have an infrastructure sales tax initiative, a penny sales tax on the ballot. Uh, it would be incumbent upon me to work with others to educate the public about what that really means, what we can do with that penny that we are asking for the tourists who will come here, who pay for over 51% of the cost of that sales tax, to help us build a multimodal transit system. And we could do some things like double the size of the Lynx bus routes. We can improve access to the access links, which really is a system that transports the disabled around in our community. We could begin to build spurs off of the main Sunrail. We could expand the hours of operation for links, for Sunrail. We could cut down the wait time between pickups to probably 15 minutes in most cases. We could reduce the cost of transportation for many of the working class people in this community, the blue collar workers, the service workers. What I was able to accomplish, we got a housing trust fund established, $100 million trust fund
Amazing.
that we're using to leverage building low cost housing. Well, maybe not so much low cost, but quality housing for low income individuals that will allow them to spend their discretionary dollars on other things. And we're going to build those units around where we do transit oriented development. We're going to build housing units in the job centers. We have a partnership where there will be one built 1,000-unit development in the International Drive Corridor near the convention center, so people who work out there can also live there. So we're doing some phenomenal things there. We created another system here for you may have recall a couple of years ago, there was a spike in violent crime here.
Yes.
And we created a citizen safety task force. We put $2 million into a fund last year to assist local not-for-profits in providing services in some of those troubled areas. And that seems to be working fairly well. They had a slow start because of the pandemic and restrictions on gathering, but they're off to an excellent start. We believe that will translate into a reduced crime in our community. And just last week, we announced a review of the behavioral and mental health system of care within our community. We know that we have nearly a $50 million gap in services, but I'm going to own it. I'm going to work with the private sector and the philanthropic sector to come up with money so that people who are mentally ill, who are substance abusers, who have co-occurring issues, who are homeless, can have housing and supportive services around them so that we can cut down on some of the disasters that we see as a community. It's not good that the Orange County Jail today, probably like many communities, is the largest place that houses people who are mentally ill. Criminalizing mental illness is not the best approach, quite frankly. Getting them treatment cuts down on recidivism. And so I'm committed to doing those types of things for the balance of the time that I have here as Orange County mayor. We want to create jobs, high wage jobs, or jobs that pay better than what is being paid today. We want to do that in a balanced way. And we have done that over a 2-year period of time. We got all of our Orange County workers up to a minimum of $15 an hour. The pandemic has driven the wages up in our community. And so what we're seeing is our local economy is making adjustment there with the costs. And that is creating, I think, a better potential quality of life for average people, everyday working people in this community, not just the wealthy or the rich and famous, but I want everyday working people to benefit from the prosperity of this community.
I think that one of the things that I love when I listen to you speak and whenever you talk, there's a passion there. And I think that people who don't know politicians that may only see things that are on the news snippet, you don't get that feel. You can't catch that. You can't see it. And when you're on a show like this, one of the things I love is that you can hear your passion. You see it. It's not just a quick little snippet. It is you speaking passionately about the things that are important to you, but really important to the county residents, important to the people who will be receiving those services. I think it is one of the things that is so it's something that makes you human. And that's one of the reasons why I love doing shows like this, because I want people to see that you do have a passion, you do have a love. This isn't politics in the House. This is really trying to do good for the world and for our Orange County community. So thank you for that. I've got a couple questions, but I want to ask you, and I'll get to those in a minute. You've got a lot of questions, actually. But I would be remiss if we didn't start talking about Black History Month. You have an interesting, you obviously have a fantastic background and a journey. You also happen to be, if you ever wanted to be low profile, you have no choice in the matter but to be high profile, because you also have an amazingly beautiful human being for a wife, Congresswoman Val Demings. So there is nothing in your life that is not in the public eye. Talk about Black History Month. How do you celebrate in your home?
Well, you're right. I'm married to a phenomenal woman who is a rock star in her own rights. She's doing just phenomenal work in the United States House of Representatives. Also a history maker as we talk about Black history this month. So far, she's the only woman to have served as Orlando police chief. She's one of a few women who have ever served as an impeachment manager for a sitting president. That's not something that one would brag about, however, but it is a part of the history of our nation. She had the opportunity to serve in that role. She even was vetted for vice president of the United States by Joe Biden, the current president. And not many people can say that. We're not sure how many people were vetted, but what I do know is she was vetted because of what they put us through in terms of the preparation for that. And I know that within just the final week or so, she was still in the hunt because of what was going on. So she came very close, but God had something else for her. In terms of Black history, we live it every day. You know, we live it every day because we don't have a choice. You know, our families have rich histories and legacy here in this country. We live it because people do call upon us because of our uniqueness in some ways. But we don't lead with that. We are in our leadership roles. I just happen to be Black, but I represent all the people. And I try to make certain that we have a culture of inclusion here within Orange County government. So I have been intentional about appointing a broad array of people in the highest ranks of my administration. We have said to our department directors and heads that we want you to hire for diversity. We want you to promote for diversity. Because when we do that, we are stronger as a community. We are more integrated in the moral fabric of our community, so that when tough things happen, difficult challenges occur, and there's a little tugging at this binding of our community that unravels every time that there's a controversy that happens, we don't get ripped apart because we are continually working on making certain that we are representing the people in this community. So because of my personal and professional beliefs, I'm probably not your traditional politician, if you will, because at this point in my career, I'm not worried about making a career. I'm not worried about getting reelected. If all things work out in August of this year, it will be really the seventh time that I would have been on a county ballot. It will be the sixth time that I would have been on a county-wide ballot because I was three times, no, it'd be the fifth time, three times as sheriff, one time as mayor, and this will be my fifth time as mayor, but I also was on the ballot for two primary elections where I had to get to the general election. So because of all of that, I'm very comfortable where I am, but I still have a lot that I want to get accomplished for the people of Orange County. And yes, you know, for some, I serve as a role model for people, particularly who look like me, who have the same color skin, but to other little boys and girls, I try to make certain that my professionalism, when I come to work, the way I carry myself is representative of someone who is serious about the service to humankind.
You mentioned diversity and inclusion. Those are buzzwords. That's a buzz phrase. Recently, it's been, and I say recently, I think in the public eye, the E has been added. So we have diversity, equity, and inclusion. When you mentioned it, why is the equity important? We have a bunch of questions about that. People talk about diversity, they understand it. They talk about inclusion, they understand it. But when they get to the E, it becomes a little bit of a challenge for them. Why is that important? Explain to them why you think that's important.
All right, equity can be somewhat elusive, but think of it this way. I've been in organizations where there have been women and people of color who had a position, but they didn't have equity in terms of the breadth of their responsibility, the magnitude of their responsibility. Uh, Someone was just checking block, and so that's not equity. Just to elevate someone or hire someone, but if you don't fully give them all of the tools by which to be successful, and you give them an equal seat at the table in the decision making, they don't have equity. So this is why you hear equity now has crept into the conversation. And in order to have equity, it takes leaders who are serious about that. Again, I think we are the United States of America. Arguably, we are the greatest nation in the world. The things that I've been able to do can perhaps only happen in a country like America. Uh, since I grew up poor, the great grandson of slaves, I grew up poor in West Orlando to blue collar workers. I can tell you that I'm not a billionaire by any stretch of the means, but I'm not poor, but I certainly have been poor, so I'm very sensitive to what that means. And I have family members who continue to be poor. I have friends who continue to be poor. I meet people every day who are poor, who do not have equal access to upward mobility. They do not have access to quality housing. They do not have access to a quality education. And consequently, that creates some challenges. As we are now in the midst of a pandemic, we have some systemic issues associated with healthcare. There have been healthcare disparities over the years, because if you couldn't afford to have healthcare, you couldn't afford dental care. That translated into other physical problems for you, health-related problems for you, where if you went to school and uh, you, you were hungry, how well were you able to study? So when we address all of these issues, then I believe that we can raise the level of opportunity for everyone. And so I had some great mentors and people who supported me over the years. Some looked like me, some did not, who gave me an opportunity to advance, to get a good education. I took advantage of that. And while it's great to have good mentors, none of them can do the work for you. You got to do the work yourself. You got to put in the blood, sweat, and tears yourself. And so for me, that has been what I learned from two blue collar parents, a mother that cleaned houses for a living. She was a maid, in other words. My father drove a taxi cab for a living till he was almost 80 years old. He's now nearly
Wow.
100 years old. He'll be 100 this year. Uh,
What a blessing to have him.
that's a blessing, so this is kind of how and why I am who I am, and why I make the kind of decisions, and I have the passion that I do have. We all have a story to tell, and that just happens to be my story.
And it's an amazing one. Before we head out, Mayor, I like to ask this question because I think it's so important to give kudos and for people to really get an insight into what the guests are thinking and feeling. When I say the word hero to you, who's the first person that comes to mind?
The first person that comes to mind really for me is my mother, because my mother had enormous challenges to run and manage a household. Sometimes my mother caught a bus to and from work and worked all day, and then went and cleaned offices at night, and sometimes had to take her little children with her while she cleaned offices. Um, so I like to say she cleaned enough houses, cleaned enough offices so I could go to college. And without that, I wouldn't be able to sit where I am today. My mother's gone on. She died about 5 years ago, 4.5, 5 years ago. And so that's a person who I didn't have to look up in the dictionary. She was living it every day for us. I mean, she just did extraordinary things. She pushed us every day to be the best that we could be, the best person that we could be. So I'm forever grateful for that.
It's always a joy and a pleasure and an honor to have you on the show. I can't thank you enough. We pray for you. We pray for your wife. We are just so impressed by the work that you do. And every time you come on the show, I am pleasantly surprised by the humility, and you're just such a great human being. And I appreciate you taking time out to end our Black History Month celebration. You all, it doesn't just have to be in February. I'd like to encourage you to get out, get involved, get educated. Mayor Demings, when you see him out and about, is just as sweet and kind and friendly as he is on this show. And I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming on and finishing up Black History Month for us, and for all the amazing work that you do in our community.
Thank you very much, sir.
All right. We'll see you guys soon.
See you soon.
Mayor Demings, everybody. If you had a question, I know Mayor Demings' office will see all the comments. I'll make sure that we get an answer for you. There were a whole bunch of questions I could not get to. I tried to get the top ones that came in, but please reach out. They will respond. Good people. Huge thanks to Kelly in your office for helping coordinate this. Thank you, Mayor Demings. God bless you guys.
Thank you very much.